Yo, what's up, fellow jazz guitarist? Larry Tamanini here. You just heard me comping through one of my favorite jazz standards, Stella by Starlight. Check it out. I picked Stella by Starlight much for the reason that I would pick like a lot of tunes. And today I want to talk about comping. This is a fun tune to comp through, just like a lot of standards. You could make a case for just about any one of these tunes in the Great American Songbook having something fun, something guitaristically cool that you can do with it. I picked Stella by Starlight because it has that E, that E, and I can use that big low E note, right? Because it's cool to use all of your instrument. And I wasn't playing a chord melody and I wasn't soloing. I was sort of like feeling my way through those changes and trying to get some voice leading, right? When you're comping, I can't stress the idea of voice leading enough. And it's not like you have to be like Gil Evans and have these masterful counter lines happening, but you do have to have a little bit of something. I feel that comping is way more challenging than solo. And comping is very personal too. There are a lot of people that can comp a lot and are great listeners and have great ears and can make it work. There are people that don't play a lot, but they play in the right spots and give you the right amount of, accompaniment. And then there's all that in between, right? Every situation is different, and that's why comping can be so difficult. In this situation, it's just me, right? So I have to figure out a way to make these chords a little bit more interesting. What I did there was play that low E and going into my A. The thing that I did with this and a lot of tunes is I'm trying to break it up. Almost like the way the piano player uses his left hand and his right hand. I'm thinking about using these two bottom strings as my left hand if I was a piano player. So when I get a little separation from the chords, right? And then I went up and played. So I went from playing some blocky type chord ideas to and hitting my low string to using, going over an octave higher and then going into double stops. And those first couple bars are going to be pretty indicative of how I comp, right? And how I try to approach comping. So just real quick. So you heard me do it a couple times there for those first two bars, right? And that's just E minor, A, and then C to F. After I played that, another thing that I like to do, and you don't have to play chords all the time when you're comping, Right? Check that out again. F minor. For those chords, what I did, instead of playing that big F minor chord, I just kind of outlined some intervals, there's that flat third into the ninth. For a dominant 7 chord, I always love going to my sus there, right? And then when I get to this E flat, my little Horace Silver action there. So there it goes again, where I'm getting a little bit of separation from those low strings, a little bit of musical forward motion too when you're throwing in those pickup notes. You're helping it go forward. Again, when you're comping for yourself and by yourself, you sort of have to make it interesting. You don't want to just be playing blocks of chords all the time, This can be cool, but if you're playing by yourself, it's going to get a little tiring. You do your Freddie Green thing, it sounds cool with a band. But we can't do that. So we end up playing something like this. of this tune, what I ended up doing, all right, so let's talk about what happened there. So I get to this B flat, right? There's your voice leading. I went from this E minor 7 flat 5 with a G on top. There's that A7 chord again, right? So I got that A7 sharp 5, so I kind of have that right on top, you know. And again, nothing wrong with like holding down that root, getting a little bit of sustain. Another reason that I picked this song is because there's only 4 chords on the bridge. 2 bars each. It's kind of almost, well, it's definitely not like a rhythm changes, but it's like that in the sense that you only have 2 chords to worry about, right? Or 4 chords, 2 bars each. So the great part of this bridge, right, is when you have this G7 sharp 5. You know, there's a lot of stuff that you can do. A lot of people will just take this chord and move it like this. I kind of did something. I took it all the way up, right? Because I wanted to play my G dominant 7 sharp 5 there, and I wanted to break up the sound when I got to that C minor. So I kind of I took the steps, took the escalator, right? All the way up to that C. And then I brought it down for this A flat. And then you get to this B flat minor, which is B flat major, which is a resolution. There's nothing wrong with playing like a little embellishment or a flourish, you know, of notes while you're ending a form. Almost like a section, almost like a drummer would mark the form, right? Same premise, same context applies for guitar players. We're all playing time. So for my last 8 bars in this tune, right? And again, this is another cool thing that happens in this song, where you just kind of have this cycle of E minor 7 flat 5 to A7, D minor 7 flat 5 to G7, C minor 7 flat 5, and then it resolves, right? So I would end up, and again, I know a lot of people play this as an E minor 7 flat 5. I play it as an E, kind of an E sus, just because I know I'm going to so many other E minor 7 flat 5s in this tune, and many other minor 7 flat 5s, right? So, and then here's that voice leading, right? So that's from that D minor. This is probably my favorite chord ever, right? This is I guess this would be a G13 flat 9 with the F in the bass, right? It's just F, B, E natural, and the A flat on top, right? And I kind of have, or I kind of like to play that sound before like the very last B flat. It's a chord I like to use a lot. Check it out. It's pretty much just like, you know, you got your B flat and your F, and then you sort of have like a C major on top. If you want to get that A on top, you can do that too. So this is a cool sound. So when you're comping, right, you don't have to play all chords all the time. A couple things you want to be aware of are, does this have like some voice leading? Now when you're playing by yourself, you know, you don't have any other input. And when you're practicing and playing, you cannot underestimate the impact that other people's energy will have on your playing, especially if you're playing with great players. If you're playing with great players, 2 things are going to happen. You're either going to get totally rocked and blown out the back of the room on the bandstand, or they're going to bring you up to their level. So the best thing you could do is to like try to keep the form and try to listen. But you're playing by yourself now, so you don't have that to think about. So you have to manufacture some of your own ideas, which is why we try to, you know, break up the chord, right, by getting the root and the chords, almost like a piano player, left hand, right hand. You know, nothing wrong with playing single notes. Right? notes interspersed with those chords is really going to have a big effect, especially when you're comping for yourself and playing guitar, right? And then another thing that you can do is don't be afraid to just let notes sustain and ring, okay? The idea when you're comping is like you want to have a blanket for everything. You can't go and have a idea or a response for every single idea. You really have to pick out what the strong ideas are, or else, you could kind of get a little too busy. So my advice to you, all my guitar friends, while you're playing, is take your time while you're playing. Being able to do what I just did with a chord, and not playing a chord melody and not really soloing over it, but again, I'm just kind of like walking through this tune, and trying to come up with some voice ideas and some ways to break it up. It's almost like a practice without pads. I'm not going 100%, but I'm engaged enough where I'm steering the ship, holding the form, trying to be a little bit more musical. Pretending there's like a line behind me or a soloist that I'm trying to accompany. So these are all some great ideas that you can use, all some really applicable ideas that you can just sit down and play, trying to get some distance between roots and the rest of the chords. Right? Playing single, nice easy notes. Using all of the guitar, right? That's another thing that I did. Even in that first phrase where you heard me play this low E, right? And then I went all the way up here. Oops, right? That A flat major sounded pretty, but I forgot. I almost wanted to end the song on that A flat. But those are those first 8 bars. And once you get used to playing some ideas like that and you piece it together, you'd be surprised about the cool musical ideas you can get happening just from thinking about voice leading and breaking up your comp a little bit. Again, comping is way harder than soloing because there's no real, destination. You're at the mercy of who you're playing with, and that's kind of the fun part about jazz sometimes. So all right, jazz guitar friends, I'll be back again soon. Don't forget to keep swinging bebop. Hit that like, hit that subscribe, hit that share button. I put up new content every week. I love to interact with all my subscribers. Thanks for hanging out. Have a great week. Bebop.